Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. This is a brand new What If. What if Deku learned the Kaio-ken? Now, first off, I want to say this. This is going to be a movie, but it's going to be a more of a quote-unquote analytical movie than it is a narrative movie. I've done this in the past. I did this with Angel Quirk. So if you don't like this style, I get it. I won't do this every single time. I like throwing this into the mix. I like the idea of doing, you know, kind of a more of a breakdown-esque or kind of possible different ideas that could transpire in this type of scenario, so that you guys can maybe think about it with me or kind of debate with me while you're listening to the video on what you think would actually happen during a what if of this magnitude. Now, with all that said, check the links in the description for everything down below, Discord, Spotify, stuff like that. But with all that said, I don't want to waste much more of your time. I want to get right into it, so let's get it. Izuku Midoriya, well, he's not born with a quirk. He is quirkless, and that's pretty relevant to this story because we have two ways to really approach this. Because the Kaio-ken is a power or a power-up from Dragon Ball Z, and it is a power-up that can really do some horrendous things to your body. Now, first off, if Izuku got Kaio-ken with the lack of training, he would rip his body to shreds. It would absolutely destroy his body, and honestly would be a little bit underwhelming, especially when we're dealing with the way the Kaio-ken works. Basically upping your strength by whatever multiplier you want it to be by. Is it 2 times, if it's 3 times, and so on. But your body can only handle so much of it. So in one world, or in one reality, we have Izuku Midoriya kind of, you know, basically and borderline destroying his whole body, and to the point where he can no longer be a hero. But obviously, none of us want to have a story like that. So what are we going to do for the story? Well, we have to do something a little bit different. Let's have a person, a sensei of some sorts, maybe a martial arts teacher, actually find Izuku. Now, it isn't find me. Maybe Izuku in this world is trying different martial arts, trying his best to basically become a quirkless hero. And as he's trying to become this quirkless hero, he tries to go to different martial artists, different senseis, different teachers, but eventually he finds somebody who is a little bit different than anybody who's really ever taught Izuku or he's ever met with. This person actually has one singular thing that he wants you to do before training with him. He wants you to make him laugh. It's an odd thing. It's a very, very odd thing. But this would be kind of a different descendant slash kind of reincarnation of the one and only King Kai. Now, King Kai would have to be in this world to a certain extent so that Izuku can learn the Kaio-ken. Now, he would learn the Kaio-ken from this King Kai-like figure, obviously not being actually King Kai, because why would King Kai be here? But a somewhat descendant slash reincarnation of King Kai. He would teach Izuku the Kaio-ken, but he would also teach him other things as well. That would be including like ki control, the ability to use ki in general, the ability to use ki blasts and stuff like that. Like those are the things that this version of King Kai would be able to teach Izuku, and something that would definitely need to be taught to Izuku if he wants to properly utilize the Kaio-ken. And he would learn these things from this King Kai figure and train for a large portion of his life. Like a very, very large portion of his life. So he would learn ki control. He would learn the Kaio-ken over the course of, we're talking 5 to 10 years. A long period of time, and especially a period of time that would definitely be needed for him to learn everything he needs to learn. Now, as we approach this basically a time for him to go on through middle school and also go on to the UA entrance exam, Izuku would face his first challenge. With everything that he has, every power he has, I would say he would be able to utilize Kaio-ken, well, probably at only like 2 times. But that would be even strenuous on his body. The real training and the real part that makes him powerful is his training with King Kai to learn how to utilize ki. Once he's able to utilize ki, that's a big thing. because Izuku now has the powers to handle quite a bit, and Kaio-ken would be kind of like his version of One For All in its own kind of way, right? Izuku would be using Kaio-ken to advance his powers even further. Let's just say, for example, he's at a power level of like 200, which it could be more, it could be less, it could be whatever you think. But if he does Kaio-ken times 2, let's say his power level is 100, it would go up to 200, essentially making him 2 times stronger, right? This is where it is different and also just kind of differentiates from One For All. One For All is a little bit different in the aspect of gaining its power, but Izuku would have to have Kaio-ken to a certain extent, and also ki control and or a power level to a certain extent to actually utilize Kaio-ken, at least to gain proper power off it. Let's say he had a power level of 5, it just wouldn't really work in terms of the power gain. I mean, he would lack a ton of power, being that he could only utilize probably like times 2, getting a power level of like 10, right? Now, that's probably lowballing what his power level probably would be just naturally, but you would have to give him some sort of key control, some sort of, key management so that he could utilize the Kaio-ken. Because, well, it would be extremely difficult nonetheless, and we would definitely be giving him a little bit of an out on the idea of him utilizing Kaio-ken, because there's a good chance that he wouldn't even be able to utilize it for a long time. Even giving him a ×2 multiplier early on like this would be kind of generous, you could say. Because a lot of the story and a lot of what's going to happen, especially with his first intertwinement with the sludge villain, would be him utilizing ki. Like, that's the big thing, is him utilizing ki. And this would allow him to basically handle most villains that he would handle early on. Sludge villain, he would be able to get away from the sludge villain and not get, captured by him, overtaken by him, or anything like that. And even if he was, the sludge villain would definitely be overwhelmed by the power that is of the Kaio-ken, and would be obliterated into little pieces, and it would be definitely something that could potentially happen. But Izuku would most likely just will have the ability to fly or move decently fast, and he would be able to move out of the way of the sludge villain until All Might would eventually arrive. Now, so the sludge villain incident, he wouldn't get captured, he wouldn't get grabbed, he would handle his business pretty well, and he would speak to All Might briefly about, what occurred, what's happening, and, how he's doing, and basically if he can be a quirkless hero. Now, All Might, honestly, would tell him that the chances of him being a quirkless hero are pretty low. But the fact that he was able to avoid and also get out of harm's way against the sludge villain, it's pretty damn impressive. And frankly, he might be, in a good spot to potentially be a hero, even though he is quote-unquote quirkless. But Izuku's not necessarily just quirkless. Like, he's not some quirkless person and that's it. He has the powers of ki control, has the powers of Kaio-ken. But even so, Kaio-ken is massively limited, and his ki control is going to definitely be a part of his training and a part of him actually utilizing the Kaio-ken. Now, for the first bit, we go on to the UA entrance exam after a 10-month training, which he always would train with that King Kai-like figure. Now, this person, you could call him, maybe just call him King. Let's just call him King. That would be the easiest way to approach it. Maybe his name is Kai King, which would be probably a decent name for him, especially being the reincarnation of someone like King Kai. So Kai King is basically helping him kind of get stronger, get better, get more prepared. His body is of peak nature, and the Kaio-ken, well, it's still not going to be able to be used to the extent that obviously Izuku would want to use it. Approaching your 3 to 4 to 5 times, still only stuck at 2 times, but only for short moments. But his power level continues to rise, his strength continues to rise, and especially because it's just non-stop training for Izuku. All he does is train, study, train. And he gets stronger and stronger. Ki control gets better, his use of ki blast gets better, his flight capabilities gets better, and everything he does, he's very like low level Dragon Ball type character, but he is pretty strong. I mean, he's getting there, especially with someone who dedicates his power to this degree. Now, he continues on with his training until the UA entrance exam. The entrance exam is his first showing of what he can truly do, but he even avoids using the Kaio-ken quite a bit. He would obviously be able to obliterate the robots with ki blasts, with punches and stuff like that, and his level of strength is pretty damn impressive, pretty damn high. And most people, well, they would think that he must have some sort of like, maybe like energy manipulation quirk, maybe some sort of strength like quirk, everything in between. He must have something to do with a lot of different things. And Izuku, on the other hand, he is legitimately quirkless. He's just learning from Kai King, or the reincarnation of King Kai, and this person is basically allowing him to gain strength that is definitely otherworldly in comparison to kind of what this normally is, right? What this place normally is. And for the last couple of weeks after the UA entrance exam, as he awaits kind of, going into UA, he would actually train with Kai King in a space that is pretty interesting, in a space that has, well, gravitational properties that begin to up his gravitational his gravitational resistance, right? And he would train in gravity-like chambers from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 times. We could even say that maybe Kai King's quirk involves that specifically, making it so that Izuku has the ability to train in higher forces of gravity. Now, I'm gonna be honest, he won't be able to handle this to a degree of like 10 times immediately. Of course not. He wouldn't even be close to that. But over the course of these couple weeks of waiting for, this to occur, or waiting for him to actually get the letter back from UA, he would be able to train with him under certain gravities, and it would exponentially make him stronger to the point where he is definitely able to handle Kaio-ken times 2 a lot better. And this Kaio-ken would make him far, far, far stronger than you could imagine, at least in terms of comparing him to these other students that he's going to be working with. Now, the first time he goes to UA, obviously we're going to be heading into the Quirk assessment exam. The Quirk assessment exam is a great showing for Izuku Midoriya, though. Izuku can throw the ball extremely far, he's extremely quick, extremely fast, he can fly, and every single thing that he has to do in the Quirk assessment, he would pass very, very easily, to the point where he's the #1 student, and he's the #1, at least in the Quirk assessment exam. And this would definitely frustrate someone like Bakugo. Bakugo would be even more upset and even more angry at the fact that Izuku is capable of what he's capable of. I mean, at the end of the day, Izuku has not shown this power throughout his time at school with Bakugo. He has not shown this power throughout this time where Bakugo continues to bully him. Bakugo continues to basically call him names, call him a Deku, call him useless, and he continues to do this. But he thinks that, well, Izuku has been holding back on him, making him seem like, basically like as if he couldn't understand it, or making fun of him and making him feel like less than because of the fact that he's been hiding his powers. Now, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. Izuku has just been training and always focused on training. So it's kind of hard for him to kind of like say otherwise, or tell him otherwise, or why would he also when he treats him like garbage? But Izuku would show off during this Quirk assessment and show that he is at a pretty damn high level, and he's basically better and more well off than almost every single person in the class 1A, or really in UA in general. His power, his strength, his ability to really fight, his literal martial arts, it's really, really high level. And going into the heroes versus villains training, I mean, it would be obvious that Izuku would be able to handle everything that gets thrown at him, especially when dealing with Bakugo, because he would easily, in martial arts alone, would be able to handle Bakugo and defeat him very, very, very simply. And he would be able to defeat, knock out, and or kind of beat down Bakugo if he so chose to do so. And with him and Ochako facing off with Tenya Ida to actually, to handle this, this whole bomb situation, Izuku is so fast, especially with utilizing a small portion of Kaio-ken. Being able to blitz through the area and blitz through the room would be no problem at all. Like, no problem at all. And he would show off these powers, show off this strength, and everybody would be thinking that he might just be up there with the strongest, and he might just be up there with some of the best possible in the world. And all of this training, all of this kind of work, well, Izuku would continue on with preparing himself, training day in and day out, eventually leading him to actually having a confrontation with villains themselves. That is the League of Villains. And the League of Villains would be confronting them at the USJ. Now, the USJ is an interesting one because this I could see happening in a specific way. Now, Izuku obviously would be even more help in this kind of regard because he can fly. So he could fly Asui, fly Mineta out of harm's way, fly around, help all of his classmates, clean up all the villains that are around the area, and Aizawa would handle the villains in the kind of middle area, you could say. And Izuku would help out massively with helping every single one of the students and all of his classmates, eventually leading him to basically taking on some villains, basically with Aizawa. Now, the Nomu, on the other hand, is the really difficult fight. Now, depending on where you think Izuku is at this moment, if he's barely able to use ×2 of Kaio-ken, and maybe you put him at a lower power level, still sitting around 200, maybe 300, he might honestly struggle with the Nomu. Now, you could kind of take it either way, depending on what you think about the Nomu's capabilities. But in my opinion, I would definitely lean Izuku to the weaker side of things, but he would be stronger than basically every villain, at least in terms of hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that. He would be able to hold his own against the Nomu, but in terms of basically awakening Kaio-ken and pushing his Kaio-ken, he would basically use Kaio-ken and then have to fend off the Nomu, and then eventually the arrival of All Might would allow him to take a breather, but taking a beating back and forth from the Nomu would be no joke, like no joke at all. And he would definitely be down for the count for a little bit, but with the help of All Might, other heroes that eventually arrive, and how quickly he was able to defeat a lot of the other villains, Shigaraki, Kurogiri were the only ones to escape. They would be legitimately the only ones that were able to escape. Now, they might get away now though, but it doesn't mean they'll get away later, because obviously Izuku will go through, the whole process of healing up and doing that and stuff along those lines. But during this time is where things would get really interesting, and this is how I believe would definitely fit Kaio-ken a little bit better into Izuku's story. Because yes, Izuku is quirkless, but what they see is that Izuku's body is actually a lot different than any other person's body with a quirk. Not just the whole pinky toe thing. No, not at all. It actually seems that his body is more advanced, has evolved a lot more than anyone else's. It seems like he can withstand he has more durability. Kind of his limbs and his tendons and everything about him can actually survive and also kind of withstand a lot more than normal people. It's very odd to think about, because a quirkless person who doesn't have a quirk, nothing, has a body that seems to be more evolved than anybody's body now. Seemingly, it is the reverse of what everyone thought would happen with quirks. Quirks evolving so much that the body cannot keep up, and then eventually leading to people not being able to utilize their quirks if they didn't want to die. Izuku is on the opposite spectrum, where he had no quirk, but his body has evolved over thousands of years in the future now, making it so that his body is now more accustomed and better attuned to the power that he has now gained from Kai King or the reincarnation of King Kai. Now, this has helped him quite a bit and has basically kind of allowed him to be able to utilize the Kaio-ken and the other powers, and also obviously ki control. Now, we could then go on to the UA Sports Festival. After some time of, healing up and progressing with his training and stuff like that, Izuku is now prepared for the UA Sports Festival, in which, I would allow Bakugo to still be that #1 student, but Izuku Midoriya would pass every single aspect of this sports festival with flying colors. We're talking the obstacle course race. The guy can fly, right? He can fly, so he can go through all of this. And even if he couldn't fly, utilizing 2 times of Kaio-ken would allow him such a speed advantage that he would be able to outpace every single person there. But obviously his ability to fly is the big thing. And same thing with the cavalry battle. Even if you give him the same people that he normally has, Tokiyami, Mei Hatsume, and Ochaku Araka, you know that his speed, his ability to fly, and also his ki blast will allow him to hold on to his 10 million point band so that nobody even comes near him. It would be so ridiculous to even try to approach Izuku, because Izuku would be able to fend them off very, very easily. Now, in terms of fighting, in terms of who he faces off with, Izuku would face off with someone like Shinso, who, as long as he doesn't speak to him, as long as he doesn't respond to him, which my assumption would be with the martial arts training, with all the training and understanding now, and all of these things that he has learned throughout this time, he would be able to find a way to just not speak to Shinso and win that first match pretty handily. Now, when he goes on to fight someone like Todoroki, it's not that Todoroki is extremely powerful and he is extremely powerful, but in comparison to Izuku would definitely be trying to get Todoroki to utilize that fire side. So he would be taking quite a bit of damage from trying to avoid, punch through, or shoot ki blast through his ice that continuously kind of barrages him, right, and berates him. And as he continues to do this, he finally utilizes his fire side, getting Todoroki to utilize that side of himself, and he would obviously show off this strength, and they would have one final clash, with Izuku clashing with Todoroki's fire, but Izuku actually utilizing a blast, a ki blast that he would cup his hands and he would shoot toward, obviously, Todoroki, and they would clash with fire and ki. And as this would happen, Todoroki would be blasted off the area, and he would be considered out of bounds, and Izuku Midoriya would go on to that next round. Now, as he continues on, facing off with Tenya Ida, there's no chance Tenya could really take on Izuku. There's really no fair battle here. Izuku would be able to handle Tenya Ida, knocking him out, being that he is far faster than Tenya. And the fight that Bakugo wanted would be with Izuku Midoriya. But just because he's fighting Izuku doesn't mean he'll be happy about it, because he faces off with Izuku and Izuku embarrasses him. And Izuku feels like he deserves it. At the end of the day, Bakugo treats him like garbage, treats him like shit. So he embarrasses Bakugo. And it's not that he's necessarily trying to embarrass him, but it's more like he shows that there's such a big difference between his and also Bakugo's power that Bakugo is frustrated, pissed off, and honestly, it's throwing a temper tantrum at the aspect of him getting second place, because that is what he gets, second place. And he is defeated by Izuku Midoriya, who stands tall at the top of the podium, and this is where All Might considers giving Izuku the power of One for All. Because if it's true that his body is more accustomed to One for All, and also more accustomed than any other person, and he's quirkless in technicality, it might just be time for him to ensue in actually gaining One for All. Now, I want to say this. That you can approach things 2 ways, right? Give him One for All, don't give him One for All. Either way, Izuku would be having power that is far greater than anything he would have up to this point, or up to really any point necessarily. Now, things could change, things could happen, but I would likely avoid giving him one for all. My idea is that, yes, his body is more accustomed to the harsh realities of Ki and also Kaio-ken, but his body is like that in my kind of quote-unquote multiverse or kind of universe of Deku here. Because of his lack of quirk. His lack of quirk has given him a more advanced body and more advanced or more evolved body, so he is able to utilize the Kaio-ken. If you gain the quirk of One for All, I would say that in a way it would mess with him and also mess with the power he has already gained, so we'll avoid One for All, and Izuku would decide to actually, after the UA Sports Festival, obviously, would decline All Might's offer of gaining One for All, the power of All Might himself, and telling All Might that he should give it to someone else who either needs it or has kind of the potential to utilize it at an even higher level than himself. Now, with all that said, All Might would eventually give the quirk to Mirio, which we obviously know the repercussions of doing so would be Mirio, his lifespan not being the highest. But as long as things get handled properly and appropriately, everything should be okay. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet, because Izuku has an internship to handle. Where does he go for an internship, though? That's a good question, right? He could go quite a few different places. He could go and intern with someone like Mirko, who is very heavily in hand-to-hand combat. He could also probably and potentially get an offer from someone like Endeavor, who Izuku proved to even beat Todoroki, so maybe he wants him around Todoroki. And these are good options, and all of them are pretty significant options. But I would say let's go down the line of him going with someone like Endeavor. Now, Mirko would be an easy one. Mirko is just hand-to-hand combat, learning even more hand-to-hand combat, helping with his fighting styles. Now, Endeavor, on the other hand, it would be working with more Todoroki. And also, he would get the chance to actually save Tanya Ida from impending doom against the Hero Killer. So that's where we'll definitely approach this version of events. Now, Izuku would approach kind of working with Endeavor, and Endeavor wouldn't really want to train him, right? He wouldn't really want to do all of that. And that's just the way Endeavor is. But still, Izuku would get the most out of everything he possibly can, and eventually Izuku and Todoroki would head off to Hosu City. And Hosu City would be when they see a ton of Nomus fighting, destroying, and doing all of these horrible things. But Izuku has progressed quite a bit since that time, and he is pretty damn strong, and these Nomus are not as strong as the ones at the USJ. Now, or the one at the USJ, excuse me. Now, this would be when there's a face-off with the Hero Killer. Obviously, with Izuku and Todoroki, the Hero Killer is absolutely screwed. And not because the Hero Killer isn't very, very good at combat, very, very good with his combat skills and his swords and his knives and stuff like that. No. It's because of the fact that Izuku is so fast. Todoroki has two different abilities / quirk-like powers that allow him to stay away from the Hero Killer and not get in close. And Izuku has powers as well and or kind of ki that allows him to stay distant and not allow him to actually get even touched by the Hero Killer if his blades could even cut through the skin of a more durable like Izuku Midoriya, which is... There is a world that his kind of blades wouldn't even be able to cut Izuku because of his more advanced skeletal and or skin-like structure and all of the above, really. Izuku would have a big advantage against the Hero Killer, and they would be able to help out, contain, and also kind of save Tanya Ida from actually being killed in this reality. Now, of course, they would get in some trouble. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not supposed to be using their quirks or powers in public and stuff like that. And they're not supposed to be, really fighting with other villains and stuff. And they're just supposed to avoid conflict at all costs. But of course, they would kind of get this kind of thrown under the rug to an extent. And it seems like it kind of, gets pushed off to the side. And it's not made some big ordeal. It's just, something basic, something simple, and it seems to be handled without any massive consequences, which is, of course, really good for Izuku and all of them, and really good for everybody involved. Now, as everything is handled to a large degree and everything is, appropriately pushed aside, Izuku would now be going on to his final exam. Now, the final exam would definitely still be against All Might with Bakugo next to him. But how does he fare against someone like All Might? I think it's pretty obvious to say that he would fare a lot better than even in the original reality. Now, is he on the level of All Might? I'm not so sure. Now, he might be on that level of All Might, but just in a different way, right? Izuku wouldn't be too far off of him, in my opinion, and would be definitely able to go head-to-head with All Might. But would he have that will to really end the fight? I'm not so sure. But All Might would not be able to handle the Ki Blast, and that's really where it is. The Ki Blast plus Kaio-ken would definitely put him on the back foot, right? But even if we get rid of the idea of utilizing Ki Blast, being able to utilize even ×2 of Kaio-ken would give Izuku such an advantage in speed that he would be able to handle All Might basically one-on-one to a pretty high level degree. Now, I'm not saying he'd beat him, not yet, but he would put himself in a situation where he is potentially getting to the point that he can almost be at that level of All Might. And that is a pretty damn high level. And if you give the kid more time of actual proper training, I mean, we're talking just levels of power that Izuku will continue to go to. Now, I want to say this is with Izuku at Kaio-ken ×2. He can go higher, but it just will massively hurt his body. So if you put him against something that needs that type of power, he could potentially do so, but he would obviously pass the final exam very, very simply, and everybody would be pretty damn impressed at the power he is showing. Now, this would lead him and lead everybody to the Forest Training Camp, which he does get a couple days, 3 to 4 days of really solid training, utilizing his Kaio-ken, trying to get used to it, get his body even more used to it, training, and getting even more powerful. Those 4 days of dedicated training are pretty damn important to Izuku and pretty damn useful as well. Now, this still would happen with the League of Villains invading, taking Bakugo, and them just by a tiny bit allowing Bakugo to get captured. But with Bakugo getting captured, Izuku Midoriya, he has every will and fiber in his body. He wants to save Bakugo. He wants to stop everything that's occurring, basically everything, and he wants to stop everything from happening the way it's happening. Now, there's kind of a course of action Izuku can take, the same course of action where they try to save Bakugo normally, or he can let the heroes do their thing, and Izuku can make his entrance to stop whatever is going to happen villainy-wise right then and right there. And I think I like that idea a little bit better, because Izuku takes all the time that he needs until Bakugo is basically found and the heroes are going to siege the place. What he does is he trains. He trains with Kai King. He trains with Kaio-ken. He trains more and more and more, even under more gravitational pull, to the point where Izuku is now even stronger. In a week's time, while they're trying to get Bakugo, or not even a week's time, a couple days' time, they have now leveled up and have now kind of transcended to an even higher level, and he has transcended to a higher level. So when they basically get Bakugo, and a fight breaks out with the League of Villains, and All For One takes on All Might, Izuku flies over at insane speeds, immediately blasts all the League of Villains with Ki Blast, blowing up a ton of the area, getting all of them wrangled up and under control, and then he floats up and flies to confront All For One. And this is a fight All For One, well, he thinks he'll win easily. But Izuku Midoriya is not only prepared, but he is pretty damn angry. And he goes one-on-one with All For One, with the help, obviously, of All Might. And this makes the fight that much easier. And Izuku makes everything that much easier to take down the League of Villains and take down All For One. But All For One, he always has a plan B. A plan B that he wasn't expecting to have to utilize, but now he does. Because the rumblings can be heard, the ground can be shaken, and we get a closer and earlier on look at Gigantomachia. And he comes barreling in to stop the fight, barreling in to take out Izuku and All Might. But with All For One down easier and earlier, and with all the heroes being kind of converging on the area, Izuku, All Might, and many others, especially with the help of Midnight and her Quirk, they're able to actually take on and defeat Gigantomachia in this last-ditch effort. Even though they were a little bit underprepared for something like this, Izuku's power, Izuku's ability to shoot Ki Blasts and kind of hit Gigantomachia with an ability that really isn't accounted for, and this allows them to maintain a far greater upper hand, like a really far greater upper hand. Now, after the defeat of All For One, defeat of the League of Villains, Izuku has a lot to prepare for, and that includes Provisional Hero License Exam. Now, this is a pretty very and easy thing to figure out, right? Izuku is far stronger now than he's ever been, and he would definitely be able to ensue in this Provisional Hero License Exam easier and better than he's ever done before, right? He's also had proper training, proper understanding of martial arts, and has given him more of a center than he ever would have. So in both of these regards, in both, you know, we're talking the normal kind of tagging with the balls, that portion easy because he's extremely fast, extremely strong. But on top of that, the rescue portion, very, very simple and very, very easy for Izuku, especially when he goes head-to-head with Gang Orca, and he's strong enough to fend him off very easily, especially fending off all of these villains in which he shoots Ki Blasts at them to kind of keep them at bay. Now, obviously, Provisional Hero License Exam, very easy, and he gets that license. But how would he kind of affect the eventual fight with Overhaul? Well, honestly, this version of Izuku probably would let the anger go against him a little bit more. So he probably would face off with Overhaul in the city before allowing him to leave. Now, does he defeat him? I would have to say yes. I mean, at this point and at this strength level, right, it definitely puts him at such a massive advantage against everyone. So defeating Overhaul is no question in my opinion. And eventually the evasion of the Shihazaikai, Izuku would be able to help on almost every single front. Every single one of them, right? If that's with some of the stronger ones that more physically strong, like a giant monstrous kind of man of a monster kind of person or anything like that, Izuku would be able to handle them pretty damn easily, and he would be kind of let's just call it pushing up his timeline to being an actual future hero. And Izuku, he's pushing that timeline pretty damn quickly, even outshining someone like Mirio, who legitimately has One For All, who legitimately has the powers of One For All now. Same thing with obviously being the successor of All Might himself. And Izuku, well, he's showing off day in and day out. Even with kind of like your Class 1A versus Class 1B, I mean, it's not even close. And there's no quirk for Monoma to take, no powers for anybody to really get their head and wrap their heads around. It is handled, it is delivered. Izuku Midoriya is the next big hero, the next hero that is going to change everything forever. Now, how would his life change as we approach his actual hero journey? I think this is something to be talked about because Izuku would eventually approach second, third year, and then eventually get into being an actual hero. How would this affect his hero journey? I mean, obviously, he would be having powers in general. He wouldn't need some sort of, suit of armor and stuff like that, but he would definitely be able to be a hero. But I could also see him being a pseudo teacher. Maybe somebody who will, teach the future generations about ki and about kind of like the usage of ki, and also maybe even the usage of Kaio-ken. that would allow this world to get far more in strength, but also allow this world to have villains and also possible threats that are even at a higher different level than anyone has possibly claimed in the first place. So Izuku's, yes, strength is very high precedent early on, but it doesn't mean that he won't have an effect on everybody in the future when he becomes a hero as well. Because at the end of the day, we would have to be dealing with one of two things. An Izuku Midoriya who can't utilize his powers properly because he has the Kaio-ken and his body breaks down and destroys itself, or we have an Izuku Midoriya who can utilize ki, who can utilize the Kaio-ken, who has proper control, and who is easily and also just, casually advancing in strength past people like All Might and people that are of such high caliber only in his first year. And normally this would be very out of the ordinary, but it's either one or the other. When you give someone like Izuku Midoriya the powers of Kaio-ken, which is from Dragon Ball Z, we are dealing with powers that are very strong. It's either one thing or the other. He becomes very powerful, or he breaks down and he's basically shot down into nothingness very quickly because his powers break his body so badly that he no longer can not only be a hero, but he can no longer even really do that much in general. Like, just that's flat out how this would go. And as Izuku, well, in our kind of reality, would push on to being a pro hero, would, become probably one of the greatest heroes alive. I mean, there's a version of Izuku that genuinely never even got there, that probably reached the entrance exam, that probably reached that first day maybe at UA, and also reached maybe that USJ. But then he utilized too much of Kaio-ken to face off with the Nomu, broke his body into pieces, and he was never the same after the fact. And that is the reality and the curse and also blessing of what Kaio-ken could truly do for a character like Izuku Midoriya. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say about Kaio-ken, about the powers that he could have. Don't worry, if we do another analytical video, it's going to be more of a Quirk-related analytical video. I actually like those a lot more. Kaio-ken's a little bit different, right? Because it's like a power or a power-up that is, involved in kind of Dragon Ball Z, of course. And I will definitely be doing more analytical videos like this, but with just a different take on it with different quirks. Maybe break down what I believe the quirk could do, potentially could do, and how the story could possibly go. But like I said, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And hope you guys enjoyed What If Deku Learned the Kaioken. And make sure to show love to the comment section, to the like button, to the sub button, all that good stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.